Spanish. About Algis Mikunas and Levinas, face to face.
Thank you. At first, I would like to welcome everybody here and to say that we are really very grateful to see Algis intellectual family here in Lithuania. So thank you a lot for coming here, and of course Algis. And so I will move to my paper. Thank you, Jorge. And Algis Mickūnas, or for some in America, I think he's more known as Algis, right? So, but I will keep Lithuanian pronunciation, Algis Mickūnas. There are several reasons to talk about Algis Mickūnas and Emanuel Levinas together. The most obvious, of course, is that both are thinkers, and both are thinkers from Lithuania. As well, they both left Lithuania in their youth and published most of their writings in non-Lithuanian languages, English and French, respectively. Both are engaged in intense dialogue with the Western philosophical tradition, but both are not restricted to that tradition alone, because Mickūnas engages with Zen Buddhism and Indian thought, while Levinas engages with Jewish thought. Furthermore, both belong to the phenomenological philosophical tradition, and at the same time, both extend their own thoughts beyond these limits. For both thinkers, too, philosophy is not monological, but intersubjective. So there are many conjunctions, geographical and philosophical, many points of contact. Beyond the methodological and conceptual intersections, which philosophers can recognize, Mickūnas, who is of a younger generation, makes explicit references to Levinas philosophy when he, for example, interprets the Western philosophical tradition, discusses the notion of philosophy, analyzes Russian literature, the dialogical relation, the phenomenological movement, and so on. However, overall, Mickūnas claims not to find Levinas philosophy close to his own. Developing his notion of philosophy, Mickūnas makes explicit his distance from Levinas' position. Therefore, despite the links between them, this philosophical difference makes joining these two thinkers very problematic. Here today, I'm limiting myself to presenting Mickūnas' notion of philosophy with references to Levinas' notion of philosophy, and showing where these two meet and where they separate, and I conclude by raising a question regarding Mickūnas' denial of Levinas' claim that ethics is first philosophy. Confessing his proximity to Greek philosophical tradition, Mickūnas, in several of his public presentations, he has shared his memory of how he grew up on the knees of Socrates, how as a young man he was arguing with Plato and Aristotle, and by this means he would call upon his audience to be involved in the discussion on the school of Athens. By this, Mickūnas not only shows his connection to the Western philosophical tradition, despite his many disavowals, detours, and distances, but as well he shows the importance of being in relation with the others, in permanent dialogue, raising questions and searching for wisdom. Mickūnas' notion of philosophy, at least in Lithuanian philosophical context, is original and without analog. One among its features, though not original, is its loyalty to philosophy as love of wisdom. However, Mickūnas is not only a disciple of Plato, because his questioning and love of wisdom go beyond Platonic eras. His love of wisdom is not called rational, intellectual search for truth and ideas, but a passion to show and express many different profiles of the world, not limited it to ideation. Mickūnas speaks critically about the Western tradition of thought searching for one arche, one idea, one truth, to be the permanent ground of all things, giving value to transcendence, and an acceptable price of lowering the status of experience and the world. The mistake of such first philosophies, according to Mickūnas, philosophy seeking for the totality, the whole, is the resulting impossibility to grasp concreteness. Necessity goes together with universality. At the same time, singularity and worldliness are taken to be accidental and as such secondary. Mickūnas, by showing the weakness of dualistic metaphysics, bears witness to, as he calls it, the erotic notion of philosophy. Not narrowing erotics to sexuality, Mickūnas tries to bring erotics not just to philosophy, but to the sphere of life as well. Asking the perennial question, what is philosophy? Mitskunas raises the following question, quote, "Despite all the efforts to make philosophy into slave of theology, metaphysics, and science, is the erotic notion of philosophy still actual?" Mitskunas connects erotic love of wisdom in his sense with the basic curiosity, to ask, to investigate, never to be satisfied, to desire more, and to be engaged in never-ending dialogue. In part, this view reflects the positive impression of the Socratic tradition, which requires interrogating, asking, doubting everything, all theses, all intentions, all references to things, relations, feelings, theories, and values. Dialogue, interrogation, discovering new meanings are essential to Mitskuna's philosophical output. Without questioning, philosophy itself disappears. New truth and new meaning are discovered in intense intersubject dialogue. Thus, for Mitskuna's philosophy is critical. Everything that by itself looks understandable without any doubts or concerns should be considered as a lack, inaccurate, or false. Quote, "It is not skepticism, but an assumption that any worldly answer is not sufficient, that a true answer must overcome worldly answers." For Mitskuna's philosophy is that transcendent movement which overcomes any position, so that any finite answer should be seen as falsification of what is real. Philosophizing also means questioning the questioner, questioning oneself, including having the courage to laugh at oneself. Taking the erotic notion of philosophy to be essential, Mitskunas opposes it to the ideological power, which he sees going through all Western thinking. Drawing the strict line between philosophical and non-philosophical thinking in his book, The Fate of Philosophy, which is published in Lithuanian, Mitskunas defines the non-philosophical as bending, submitting, or obeying one or another structure of power. The philosophical position, in contrast, is a permanent interrogation, such that the human condition is a taking of and discussing of different positions. And it is why Mitskunas introduces the free individual who does not obey any authority. Obeying differing authorities and developing discourses of power is what Mitskunas sees in all Western metaphysics and what he rejects. Such metaphysics cannot be true philosophy because it does not rely on experience, but on presupposition, speculation, and never stops looking for the one thing only, an absolute ground. A feature of such speculative philosophy from Mitskunas is the way it relies on presuppositions such as being, God, monads, infinity, and so on. In this way he writes, quote, "The world of phenomena, which consists of things, space, and time, is deduced from transcendent X. The hypothesis of transcendent X, according to Mitskunas, determines that the main question of philosophy becomes the question of origin, of being, not in time but in principle, as intellectual presupposition or transcendental condition. The question of origin as intellectual presupposition, such a principle, can be seen along with Leibniz and Heidegger as the question of the first ground, why there is something rather than nothing. Looking back to the history of metaphysics, one finds different answers. For Plato, it is the idea of the good; for Aristotle, logos, and the possibility to explain everything according to four forces. For Descartes, clear and distinct ideas; for Leibniz, sufficient reason; for Kant, conditions for the possibility of experience; for Hegel, the absolute concept. Without such speculative postulates, according to Mitskunas, what he calls first philosophies would not exist. The world which is not necessary, the so-called contingent world, is deduced from this first and absolute being, and only this first being, which Mitskunas calls cosmic blue, guarantees the existence and continuity of the world. In such case, metaphysics is an effort to understand all beings according to the absolute being, and life is denied. According to Mitskunas, if life has any value and any meaning, which for Mitskunas it does, that value and meaning cannot come from the transcendent X, which in the end, so he argues, does not even exist except as a false idea, but only from the life itself it can come. Mitskunas is the thinker after the collapse of metaphysics, after the so-called end of metaphysics, after the death of metaphysics. the dialogue he invites us to enter that intends to be far away from metaphysical and ontological question of being. Mitskūnas reminds us, Socrates, who is in Phaedrus, said, "If I am not yet able to know myself, it seems to me ridiculous when I do not yet know that to investigate irrelevant things." In this way, Mitskūnas turns us from ideas, concepts, principles, and the like to life and experience, to being together. Therefore, to return to our question of Mitskūnas' relation to Levinas, it is against Heidegger, but together with Levinas, that the question of being is not the first philosophical question for Mitskūnas. The criticism of Western metaphysics and the rejection to the primacy of question of being, we can find in Levinas' critique of Western philosophy as totality. All rational systems deny the individuality and the individual by putting it under the universal. Levinas recognized in this thinking the elimination of difference. Such thinking is with allergy to otherness, as Levinas describes it. From Parmenides to Heidegger, otherness was reduced to identity and system. By this means, whereby it's not a relation to the other as such, but reduced to the other to the same. Philosophy limits itself to autonomy, to the same. In contrast to metaphysics as a question of ground, principle, and essence, as one finds in Aristotle, for instance, in Levinas' philosophy, metaphysics takes on the sense of seeking for the other, for otherness, a source of transcendence. In a text published in 1978 entitled Two Philosophers of Lithuanian Origin, Mitskūnas utilizes Levinas' critique of totality to criticize power and control, making some references to what he calls Levinas' thinking of infinition. Mitskūnas points out in it, in contrast to previous totalitarian system, that the other remains different, is not grasped, is not put in the system. Here Mitskūnas treats Levinas' philosophy positively, as one of interrogation, dialogue, and encounter like his own. So despite Mitskūnas' more recent expressions of doubts regarding Levinas' philosophy of otherness and infinity, it is fair to say that in some way both of these thinkers share, and both of these thinkers are guided by the fundamental desire to escape the discourse of totality. Also, Levinas, like Mitskūnas, sees the possibility of overcoming the philosophical discourse of totality through desire. In metaphysics itself, according to Levinas, there is a hidden desire for otherness, which disturbs the logic of totality and interrupts it. Desire is not need, which can be satisfied. Desire is not sentimental satisfaction, as it can be seen in some accounts of love. It is not knowledge-seeking, which knows beforehand what it seeks. Indeed, is not in any sense definable as a lack, and in this way Levinas also opposes Plato. For Levinas, metaphysical desire modifies the phenomenological method itself, orients thinking toward transcendence, toward infinity, thinking more than thought, as a desire for otherness. Desire is directed to exteriority, which cannot become assimilated. Thus, it cannot be absorbed by thought, but always remains oriented toward the absolutely other. By finding the structure of desire metaphysics, Levinas introduces a non-traditional notion of metaphysics. Although one might say after Levinas that otherness was always the true desire of metaphysics, such is Levinas' originality. The wisdom of philosophy has for ages been understood as understanding, recognition, knowledge, revelation, and disclosure, but Levinas finds a deeper dimension. Otherwise than in Mitskūnas' philosophy, for Levinas, desire is not only desire for wisdom as enjoying differences in their variety and changing. For Levinas, the escape from totality occurs as ethics, acknowledging the primacy of the other as moral obligation toward the other person. Thus, it is in ethical responsibility that Levinas sees the overcoming of totality. It is also dialogue and encounter, but now dialogue and encounter whose original signification and orientation arises not in a pure openness, but in concrete care for the material welfare of the other person who is facing, giving food to the hungry, providing clothes for the naked, healing illness and dressing wounds. Goodness for Levinas is before knowledge, more urgent and more concrete. This reactivates the notion of the good above being, which orients the Socratic tradition without limiting it to the Socrates-specific claim that one must first know the good to be the good and to do the good. In Levinas' philosophy, ethics precedes knowledge in the sense that it has priority over, it is more urgent than raising the question or answering the question of the being. Levinasian good is the condition of questioning itself. Despite the fact that both Levinas and Mitskunas desire to escape totality and that their rational worldview is insufficient for both, here, in the primacy Levinas opposed to ethics, we see the central difference separating these two thinkers. For Levinas' desires, the meaning of philosophy are not neutral. The good is not the same as the idea of the good. It is not nominative, but imperative. Or, as Levinas puts this point, the good is in the accusative, an obligation upon myself, first of all. It arises in the first personal singular, and nothing is more concrete, more intense, less substantial for Levinas than moral responsibilities. It is precisely this moment that Mitskunas criticizes the most. Mitskunas criticizes the Levinasian primacy of ethics as first philosophy, because he thinks Levinas has made the other person abstract, a pure otherness, instead of the concrete particular person. The other, according to Mitskunas' perspective, stops my question, interrupts me. It's another philosophical sphinx, as he calls, which forces me to choose either or, quote. Either it remains dependent, a temptation to serve, and to be the instrument for some caprice, or it spreads freely, unconcerned about culture, science, divinities, tendencies, utilities, or metaphysical care. Following this critical attitude, Mitskunas sees in Levinas' philosophy the discourse of power again. Here the infinity and the entirety of the face of the other person becomes not liberating, but oppressive, calling it one of the main philosophical errors. Mitskunas claims that here a finite and fallible human being has raised universal demands to such a level that they cannot be reached by any experience. Looked at from Mitskunas' critical point of view, the encounter with the other person, as Levinas presents it, is another form of totality. Its falsity claims to overcome totality because it puts an end to questioning, because it is chosen for me, because I cannot escape the responsibility under my skin, as Levinas put it. It leads not to dialogue, which is basic for the Socratic tradition Mitskunas wants to affirm, but to the other power over me, the other controlling and ordering me. So Levinas is exalting the other person. So Levinas, in exalting the other person, fails to escape the Western totality, and in so doing, he brings to philosophy non-philosophical elements in pure philosophy, or more radically, the denial of philosophy, which Mitskunas discovers in the main moments of Levinas' thought, in his phenomenological method, in analysis of otherness, other person, infinity, God, and his notion of ethics. Furthermore, because Levinas does not draw strict lines between Athens and Jerusalem, that is to say, between the religious and the philosophical, but celebrates the communication between them, as Levinas says, this, for Mitskunas, is a huge and unforgivable philosophical sin. For Mitskunas, it is philosophical pretensions. Everything must be open to question and remain in question. Mitskunas' thought is guided by the criticism of metaphysics, looking to extend the project of Nietzsche and Heidegger to overcome metaphysics, to think after, beyond, and without metaphysics. Escaping all metaphysics, including ethical metaphysics and recognizing the failure to overcome metaphysics even in postmodern philosophy, such as Derrida and Deleuze, Mitskounas remains faithful in his own way to Socrates' love of wisdom, the questioning and remaining free without any directions and authorities. If in Levinas' philosophy the way away from totality leads through ethical difference and remains thus within metaphysics, Mitskounas, to move away from the discourse of power in metaphysics, continues and in the same way goes beyond Socratic questioning, to supplement it with the cosmic differences and their unending sparkling playfulness. Well, events flying in the cosmos from time to time for a moment will connect and then disappear, spreading without traces. That's why they matter. Mitskounas feels close to life in all its fullness, its colors, ecstasies, its dance, wildness, excitement, and flushness. He reminds us of Zarathustra's encounter with the daughters of the desert. And by this would have us admire, in Mitskounas' word, quote, cosmic light without any constancy, without position, without directions or goals, like melodies, which come and go without substance, and so is life. All events, they appear and disappear. In this Mitskounas Nietzschean cosmology, any direction is justified and all are valued. From there above, we can see clearly that though both Mitskounas and Levinas aim to escape the discourse of metaphysics, their paths are not only different but incompatible. Levinas goes through and remains faithful to the ethical, which for him cannot be reduced to normativity, and Mitskounas goes through and remains faithful to the aesthetical, which for him cannot be reduced to the theory of beauty. And now I want to ask at this point then is whether Mitskounas' erotic aesthetic theory of philosophy is truly opposed to or even indifferent to ethical. To be permanent in question, to celebrate eternally in playfulness aesthetic differences, are these activities morally neutral? Are desire and passion toward the world, which Mitskounas declares in his admiration of Hepatica flower, the bold color of Van Gogh's sunflowers, the smell of Lithuanian black bread coming from the oven? Are these passions, impressions, and love fully explainable when taken to be only aesthetic phenomena? Mitskounas does not seek to rethink ethics philosophically, and no doubt he does not take it as first philosophy. However, Mitskounas' passion for wisdom, I think, is not neutral. Freeing himself from authorities, he still turns back to us. We hear his friends, he faces us, talks to us, and tries to free us as well. This notion of philosophy as liberating, not as much as doctrine, but as an existential position and exhortation, invites us to dialogue. Algis grew up on the knees of Socrates, so we together with him at meetings in Santer, at Baltos Lankos, and at his office on Pilies Street, and here again at this conference together, where perhaps someone will paint a new school of Athens, philosophy free from dogma and authorities, without dividing theory and practice, in action as life. Are we not together aiming for the good? Is this not a beautiful form of ethics? Algis' responsibility and obligation not just to wisdom and enlightenment as abstraction, but in his sincerity, in the warmth of his very human relations, including his role as teacher, we as his sons and his daughters, a personal touch which exceeds the classrooms and lecture halls of the academy, exceeds papers in journals or chapters in books. Are these not only love of wisdom, but the wisdom of love as well? Surely, I think they are. Admiring the playfulness of events, Algis remains teacher and friend, not only with his text, but face to face, question to question. We are with him, and he is with us, not only because he involved us and does not let us escape the adventure of searching for wisdom, but also, and even more so, because this involvement is not monological, not indifferent. It is authentic and respectful. And so, to answer my own rhetorical questions, with another rhetorical question, is this not what Levinas calls the saying of the set? And, unlike the biting gadfly of Athens, Miffuna's way provokes, but doesn't hurt. It liberates, but at the same time raises. And this is why we gathered not as a jury to try Algis, but friends to celebrate him and to convict him of his goodness.